Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. And today I want to be talking about thinking errors. And those thinking errors, they're also called cognitive distortions. And let me explain a little bit what those cognitive distortions are. Cognitive distortion, or a distorted thought, and there are many, is an exaggerated pattern of thought that's not based on facts. So it consequently leads you to view things more negatively than they really are. So in other words, when we make those thinking errors, we view things way more negative than based on facts. When we do that, when we make a lot of those thinking errors, we can become anxious or depressed. Those cognitive distortions were first described by American psychiatrist Aaron Beck in the early 60s. He is also, we can say, the father of cognitive behavioral therapy. And this form of therapy is used all over the world right now for example, treating anxiety and depression. Essentially what it does is that with CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, we change our cognitions. So we change the way we look at things, how we look at ourselves, how we look at the world. It's really interesting to look at what are some of those thinking errors that we make a lot of the time. Let's have a look at some of those thinking errors and also have a look at how we can change our way of thinking. We are often very quick in assuming that someone's behavior has something to do with us. So what we do then is we tend to read the minds of others. So for example, you can have a conversation with someone and you notice that they are a little bit distracted. What we do is when we are mind reading, we can think that the distracted behavior has something to do with us. So we can think, for example, the other person, for example, Sarah, thinks I'm boring because she's very distracted in our conversation. So I have to be a very boring person. It is possible that she thinks that we are very boring. It is a possibility. But there are also all other kinds of possibilities. For example, she is very tired that day, or she just had some bad news, or she's not feeling very well. So to think about is, one, what is the proof that I have for this assumption that she must think that I'm boring? And two then is, what are other possible explanations for the behavior the other person is showing? The second one is black or white thinking, or they also call it all or nothing thinking. So what we do is that we think something is or amazing or it is awful. So there are no gray areas. For example, you make a plan to eat healthier. When you go to work, you can't resist the piece of apple pie that your co-worker made. And then the thought comes up, okay, I've ruined my eating plan. I might as well just give up and start next Monday. So there isn't like this gray area of, okay, I just eat apple pie. It was delicious. Let's continue with my eating healthy plan. But what we do is no, we think we failed the very strict rules we set up for ourselves, and then we just give up and only want to start again if it is perfect. So to think about is, what could be the gray area in the situation and what can we be proud of? And also understand that setbacks happen. That is part of life. Number 3 is ignoring the good, and by that focusing on the bad. And they also call this one the mental filter. So we kind of have these glasses on which only filter out the negative things in a situation. For example, you are trying to get fit and stronger. So you go to the gym every day and you work out. But the only thing you can focus on is how weak you are right now, or you're not at the place you want to be. You become very critical of yourself. What is important to think about in this situation is, what can I be proud of? Okay, I know that I'm not there where I want to be, but there are all kinds of positives in the situation. For example, you are going to the gym 3 times a week and before you didn't go at all, or you notice that you're stronger than 3 weeks before, or you notice that you are enjoying exercising way more. Think of all other examples that are going well. It's important to really try to focus on all the things that are going really well. And the fourth one is fortune telling. So with fortune telling, we think in a way like we know the future, what is going to happen. For example, if you think, if I apply for this job, I am sure they will reject me. So you think in a way that you are 100% sure that they're going to reject you. And what's happening also is that you're not going to apply at all, which is a shame because then you know for sure that you're not going to get the job. Or the thought of, I haven't found a real connection yet with someone, so it's never gonna happen. You don't know if it's never gonna happen. You can't make that prediction based on that it's not happened yet. So we think in a way like we know the future. And what is important, or what we can think about in this situation, is what are all the other possible outcomes. So what we do is we tend to focus on only that one scenario that we made up in our mind, but there are so many different scenarios possible for our lives. So really think of what are all the possible scenarios that can happen, instead of focusing only on that one scenario that we made up in our minds. Number 5, overgeneralizing. So based on one event, we tend to overgeneralize its occurrence or its effect. For example, you get a bad grade for an exam and the thought then is, I will never graduate. Thinking that I will never graduate can then lead to you feeling hopeless. So to think about is, what is the evidence that proves me wrong? You failed this exam, but it doesn't mean that you're never gonna graduate. Really try to think of, is this thought very realistic, or am I overgeneralizing what just happened? And number 6 is minimization or magnification. So we tend to minimize or we magnify the importance of events. I have a little bit of a personal story for this one. I've been bouldering for a while now, and the people who boulder know that you have different routes you can climb, and they are also different colors. And the different colors, they state how difficult the route is. And I really wanted to climb this orange route. And I've never done one of the orange one, and I told myself if I do one of the orange one, then I can buy a t-shirt, like they sold these boulder t-shirts there, and I really wanted one, but I said to myself I can only have one if I climb this route. And then the day came that I climbed my first orange one, and what I did then was that I say it doesn't count because this orange one really wasn't an orange one, because I think it was too easy because I climbed it already. So I minimized my accomplishments in that case. And it was actually one of my friends who said that to me. It's like, what are you doing? You just climbed the orange one and you're telling yourself it doesn't count. Instead of me being proud of climbing the route I wanted to climb and getting myself the t-shirt that I promised myself I would buy, I told myself, no, it doesn't count. It wasn't difficult enough. What we really need to think about is that we really need to be proud of the things that we accomplish, and that we have to be careful that we don't minimize things that we do and accomplish. The 7th one, emotional reasoning, is thinking, I feel this way, so it must be true. For example, I feel inadequate, so I must be inadequate. Think about in this case is that while the feeling itself is very real and very valid, it doesn't have any relationship with the reality per se. So really try to think of the evidence you can gather for the contrary. So what is the evidence you can gather for, actually, I'm very adequate? Number 8 is should. So making should statements or must statements. For example, you think I should be having all of these friends, or I shouldn't be feeling nervous when I walk into a meeting or a group of new people, for example. Or I should be exercising 5 times a week. Those are all shoulds and musts that we picked up somewhere down the line that we really turned into rules for ourselves. So the should statements is actually a very strict rule we apply to ourselves, and we think that if we don't apply to this, or if we don't follow this rule, then we failed. That's actually the kind of the bottom line with the should statements. If you say I should exercise 5 times a week and you exercise 3 times, which is amazing, you think, okay, I failed because I should exercise 5 times a week. What we can think about in this case is that we again try to reframe the way we look at it. So instead of you thinking, I should have gone 5 times to the gym, I'm really proud I went 3 times this week. Or when you think, I can't feel nervous when I walk into a meeting, stating it's completely normal, or it's fine, or it's okay to feel nervous. Really try to get rid of the shoulds and the musts. And the last one, number 9, is unreal ideal. So we have a tendency to compare ourselves with people who have an advantage in a certain area. So in my case, I'm just starting with YouTube, and I tend to compare myself a lot of the times with people who have been doing this for, 5 years or even more, or people who have a lot of experience with working with cameras and all these fancy equipment. So what we can think about, or what I have to think about in this case, is, am I making a fair comparison? And if I'm comparing myself to someone who's been doing YouTube for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, then I'm not making a fair comparison. You are on your own journey, I'm on my own journey. So it's not fair to compare myself with some of the best out there, because then you always feel, less skilled than the other person, because you are less skilled than the other person. And that's okay, because you're at that point in the journey and they're already further down the line. So we need to stop with making these unfair comparisons and just be, proud of where you are right now. So these are the 9 thinking errors that we all make from time to time. And it's important to try to recognize that we make them. That's the first step. And if we recognize them, then the second step is that we can try to reframe them. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found this video helpful in a way, and I hope I see you next time. Bye!